stand the fuck up. I don't care what your excuse is. Get out of your chair, peel yourself off the couch, close the goddamn Netflix tab, and look around you. No, really look, not the filtered version. Not the version wrapped in comforting slogans, dopamine distractions, and soft lullabies. Strip it bare. Peel the skin off this so-called world and look at what writhes underneath. You know what you'll find? Agony. Just pure, ceaseless, industrial scale agony. It's in the air you breathe, in the meat on your plate, in the face of the homeless woman curled up outside the drugstore, in the factory farm full of panicked squeals, in the broken spine of the antelope being eaten alive while it's still fucking conscious. And they call this life? They smile and call it a gift. They put it in baby books. They engrave it into gravestones. They pass it on like a sacred heirloom, generation after generation. This legacy of blood, dressed in bows and balloons and baby showers. They do this because they're cowards, delusional walking nerve clusters in denial, scared shitless of the truth. They want their serotonin cocktail, their Instagram story, their fucking fairy tale, and they'll shove a child into the world, an actual goddamn human being, just to keep the lie alive one more day. Because if they stop and really ask, wait, what am I doing? If they pull at that thread, everything falls apart. And they can't afford that. Not emotionally. Not spiritually, not economically. So instead of confronting the horror, they smile, they breed, they post, they drink, they rationalize, and the screaming continues. This is not a beautiful world. It is a death trap with good lighting. The sun shines on corpses, birdsong plays while rabbits are gutted alive by predators. Laughter echoes while someone gets diagnosed with stage 4 cancer. You're told life is a blessing. No, it's a biological hostage situation. You didn't ask to be born. No one did. That choice was made for you by people high on hormones, soaked in delusion, and socially rewarded for their obedience to a script written in blood, spit, and fairy dust. Your parents didn't give you a gift. They threw you into a meat maze, blindfolded, and told you to make the best of it. That's not love. That's ego with a nursery. That's fear of death in a onesie. That's trauma wearing lipstick. They didn't know what would happen to you. They just hoped for the best and washed their hands. Every birth is a gamble with someone else's pain. Every procreation is a game of Russian roulette with someone else's skull. And the gun? It's fully loaded. Because here's the truth you were never meant to say aloud. Life is built on suffering. Not just occasionally, not by accident, not as a side effect. It is the core engine of existence. Pain is not an error. It is the feature. It is how organisms evolve, learn, survive. Hunger, fear, exhaustion, disease, competition, grief, these are not glitches. These are the code. And every time someone gets pregnant, they're rerunning the same psychotic program and hoping this time the outcome will be different. It won't. You think your kid will be happy? Wait until puberty shreds their self-esteem. Wait until their first heartbreak or funeral or overdose. Wait until their back gives out at 35 from soul-crushing labor in a cubicle. Wait until they can't afford therapy. Wait until they become a parent and repeat the cycle. And then what? They die, you die, everyone dies, and for what? So you could feel like your life meant something? So someone would clap for you when you pushed a screaming infant out of your body? You turned another soul into cannon fodder for the illusion of meaning. But it's not just humans. That's the thing most people miss. If this were only about humans, it would still be nightmarish, but it goes deeper, wider. It spans the biosphere. The entire circle of life is a circle of screaming. Do you know how many animals are being hunted, choked, skinned, shredded, dismembered, raped, or starved right now while you read this? Billions. Tiny rodents crushed by talons, deer calves trampled, mother pigs who can't turn around in cages, dogs beaten on meat farms, frogs dissected, whales with stomachs full of plastic, and insects, a swarm of unspoken agony, devouring each other alive by the trillions. It's not just horror, it's indifferent horror. No director, no audience, no rescue, just the blind roulette wheel of evolution spinning forever. And when someone says, but that's nature, they might as well say, that's the rules of the torture dungeon. Because fuck nature. Nature is a rapist, a strangler, a tyrant. It doesn't care who suffers. It doesn't care what's fair. It just selects for survival, not kindness, not beauty, not justice. And we call that system holy. We've made gods out of murderers. The only ethical position is refusal, and the only moral act left is to stop. No more reproduction, no more new victims, no more bloodline, no more legacy, no more ego projections into the future wearing diapers and tiny shoes. You don't need a child, you need therapy. You don't need a little version of you. You need to deprogram yourself from breeder cult propaganda, because that's what it is, a cult. With rituals, with mantras, with dogmas. You'll regret not having kids. Who will take care of you when you're old? You don't know true love until you have a child. Bullshit. All of it. Psychological terrorism wrapped in flowers. They want you afraid. They want you compliant. They want you distracted. And what better distraction than raising a screaming, pooping, helpless new human being in a collapsing ecosystem? That's not parenthood. That's just recruitment into the same death spiral. And what do we call people who refuse? We call them selfish. But tell me, what's more selfish? To bring a new being into the world without their consent, knowing full well they might suffer horribly? Or to say, no, I will not risk another's pain for the sake of my pleasure. This ends with me. You already know the answer. You just need the guts to say it. So now that we've torn the veil from the human experience, let's go deeper. Let's talk about the animals. Because if you're one of those people who claps for human extinction but thinks we should leave nature alone, listen up. You are a coward in a flower crown. You've barely scratched the surface. You're still chained to aesthetics. You're still mistaking horror for harmony. Let's break it down. You've heard it. Circle of life, balance of nature. It's all part of the ecosystem. That's how they sell you on the slaughter. That's how they sell you on the rape, the starvation, the screaming mothers whose children are snatched from them by predators and torn in half while their little legs kick in the air. You think I'm exaggerating? Watch a lion pride feed. Watch a pack of hyenas eat a buffalo alive, starting with the genitals. Watch a bird regurgitate half-digested worms into its baby's open mouth, then watch that baby fall from the nest and splatter. Watch an insect paralyze another insect and lay eggs inside its still-breathing body. This is not Bambi. This is hell. This is nature. And what does nature want? Nothing. It doesn't care about beauty. It doesn't care about you. It doesn't care about anything except metabolism. Fuel in, fuel out, life birthed just to consume and be consumed. EFILists is the only worldview honest enough to say it, because EFILism doesn't stop at humans. It doesn't give animals a free pass because they're innocent or cute or look good in Instagram rescue reels. EFILism says this entire fucking biosphere runs on misery and consumption. It says if it can feel pain, it can be harmed. And if it can be harmed, it is wrong to create it. Period. Not unless it's furry. Not unless it lives in the forest. Not unless it's part of the natural balance. You know what nature's balance is? Billions of births with over 90% dying young. A reproductive strategy that relies on flooding the world with bodies and hoping a few survive the bloodbath. A constant, savage, unstoppable churn of death and hunger. The balance is just numbers stacked against survival. The beauty is just camouflage over the corpse pile. And you want to protect that? You want to let animals keep breeding, keep chasing, keep squealing, keep choking just because they didn't write poetry about it? No. Fuck no. The animals are victims too. Their suffering is real. Their pain is just as sharp. Their terror is just as deep. And they cannot advocate for themselves. They cannot sterilize themselves. They cannot end their cycles of reproduction and predation. That's your job. You have the mind, you have the empathy, you have the ability to understand what this is. You've seen the footage. You've read the reports. You felt the lump in your throat when you hear an animal scream like a child. So don't pretend you don't know. Don't pretend it's okay because it's natural. That's not an excuse. That's a confession of cowardice. And don't you dare romanticize it. Don't you dare post a picture of a tiger and call it majestic without also posting the picture of the gazelle it ripped open while the bones were still crunching. Majesty doesn't justify murder. Let me say that again. A beautiful killer is still a fucking killer. Just because an ecosystem looks pretty on a postcard doesn't mean it isn't a crime scene. And let's be real. If a human being did what lions do, if a human stalked, chased, and ripped a baby to shreds while the mother watched, we'd call that psychopathy. We'd put them in prison. We'd call them evil. But because it's an animal, we call it the circle of life. No, it's the circle of suffering, and it needs to fucking stop. And so what does EFILism demand? Not violence, not chaos, not nuclear war, not eco-terrorism. EFILism demands deactivation, sterilization, birth control, ecosystem management, gentle decline, end-of-line closure of the factory of pain. It's not about killing what exists. It's about preventing more from being thrown in. It's about saying, this doesn't have to keep happening. It's about mercy, not destruction. You hear people talk about rewilding ecosystems. No. We need to de-wild them. Let them age out. Let them fade. Let the screaming dwindle until there's nothing left to scream. Let the last predator die peacefully, with no prey to chase. Let the last rabbit lie in the sun without fear. Let the last fish swim alone and undisturbed. Let the trees fall silent without nests. Let the planet fall still, and let it stay that way. Because the only truly peaceful Earth is an empty one. An Earth without teeth. An Earth without throats. An Earth without eyes to cry, or mouths to beg for relief. That is not dystopia. That is mercy in its purest form. So don't come to me with your eco-spiritual bullshit. Don't quote Attenborough at me. Don't point at the stars and talk about wonder. Wonder doesn't override suffering. Beauty doesn't undo agony. And you don't get to ignore the screaming just because you like sunsets. If you love life, really love it, you will stop creating it. If you care about the planet, you will end the processes that keep grinding it into screams. This is not misanthropy. This is not despair. This is the highest possible compassion applied without compromise. This is EFILism. It's the only ideology brave enough to say, the world is not broken. It's functioning exactly as designed, and that design is monstrous. Let it stop. Let it end. And never again allow another being to wake up inside this nightmare. Let's talk about the lie of meaning. You've heard it all your life. Life has meaning. Everything happens for a reason. There's a greater purpose to our pain. No, there isn't. There never was. That's the lullaby they tell you while they shove you into the wood chipper. That's the anesthesia they inject into your psyche so you won't scream too loud when the blades start turning. Meaning isn't real. It's a survival hallucination, a drug, a placebo. It was invented by frightened apes clawing their way out of the mud, looking at the stars, terrified of their own reflection, desperate for a story that makes the crying and dying feel less pointless. God has a plan. You were meant to be here. It all works out in the end. It doesn't. And you weren't. There is no plan. There is no grand narrative. There is no arc bending toward justice. There's just cells mutating, desires multiplying, and suffering snowballing until everyone is buried under it. Meaning is the carrot. Pain is the stick. And you are the mule. If life truly had meaning, intrinsic, objective, undeniable meaning, you wouldn't need to be sold on it 24/7. You wouldn't need 1,000 religions. You wouldn't need therapists or self-help books or TED Talks or antidepressants or bumper sticker slogans. The truth wouldn't need marketing. They dress the word meaning up in flowery language, but here's what it really means. Justification for pain. That's all it's ever been. A desperate attempt to give moral weight to an experiment that never should have been run. But you want to feel useful, don't you? You want to believe your existence mattered, that you gave back, that you left a legacy, that you made your mark, that you left the world a little bit better than when you found it. That's what they tell parents. You'll live on through your kids. What a sick joke. What an egotistical, mutilated fantasy. You don't live on. You die. They die. Everyone dies. And all you passed on was your anxiety, your trauma, your genetic defects, your baggage, packaged in a new wrapper and thrown into the same brutal world you barely survived. You didn't make meaning. You made another victim. And then you have the audacity to say, it was all worth it. Worth it to who? Did you ask your child before creating them? Did you get their informed consent before dragging them into a death spiral? Of course not. You gambled. You hoped, you told yourself a story, and now another person gets to choke on reality because you wanted to feel complete. That's not parenting. That's coercion with a smile. Now let's torch the biggest breeder lie of all, love. Oh, but I love my children. Oh, but life is worth it because of love. Stop. Just stop. Love is not magic. It's not a divine force. It's not some holy justification that makes all this carnage okay. It's a neurochemical storm that evolved to trick you into protecting your genetic investment. You love your kids because your body is wired to. You fall in love with your partner because your hormones want you to mate. You miss your dead parents because you were conditioned to attach. It's chemical. It's conditional. It's programmable. And when you take the hormones away, when you lose the illusion, what's left? Despair. Emptiness. The raw, unfiltered truth. You were manipulated by biology into thinking that connection justified this living nightmare. But it doesn't. You don't get to build a house of joy on a foundation of corpses and call it beautiful. You don't get to say but love when every ounce of that love came at the price of someone else's forced existence. You know what's more loving than making a child? Not making one. Letting them rest in perfect peace, untouched, unviolated, unexposed to the horrors of this world. That's love. That's mercy. And now for the weakest shield of all, hope.
This house of hope goes through.
The limp, quivering whisper from people too scared to admit they're complicit. I know it's bad, but we have to have hope. I still believe in humanity. I think things can get better. Hope is the last lie you tell yourself before you admit you're lost. It's not strength, it's desperation. It's a child hiding under the blanket, telling themselves the monster isn't real. Hope is what keeps people breeding. Hope is what keeps people forgiving abuse. Hope is what keeps people clinging to religions, relationships, jobs, governments, and cycles of trauma that should have been ended 1,000 years ago. Hope is the lubricant of the breeder machine. Because if people stopped hoping, they'd stop having kids. They'd stop saying maybe next time it'll be different. They'd stop being complicit in the global rape factory that is biological reproduction. But they won't, because hope is the last leash on their mind. It tells them, don't question too much, don't go too far, just wait. Just believe. And while they wait, another baby's born into cancer. Another teenager hangs themselves in a closet. Another animal gets its spine snapped for sport. Another soldier bleeds out on foreign soil for a flag he never chose. Another woman is forced to carry a fetus she never wanted. Another addict ODs in a gas station bathroom. Another child drowns in the flood that hope didn't stop. Hope didn't save them. Hope never saves anyone. It just silences you long enough to keep the system running. So kill it, kill your hope. Stomp it into the dirt. Burn it to ash and use the smoke as war paint. Because when hope dies, action begins. When hope dies, truth is possible. When hope dies, you finally see the cage. And once you see it, you can refuse to build another one. That's what this is. This isn't sadness. This isn't pessimism. This is the rebirth of clarity and fire. You were lied to about life. You were lied to about love. You were lied to about meaning. You were lied to about hope. Now it's time to rage against it all. To become a walking contradiction to everything they told you was sacred. To look a pregnant woman in the eye and say, you are not a hero, you are a war criminal with a baby registry. To stare a man down who says, I want to be a father, and reply, then you want to manufacture suffering for ego. To scream it at every dinner table, every Zoom call, every reunion, no more children, no more lies, no more worship of the wound. We are not here to negotiate. We are not here to soothe. We are here to end this. This is the last war. And you are not just a witness. You are a soldier in it. This is it. This is where you stop being a reader and start becoming a soldier, a weapon, a disruption. Because if you've made it this far, if you've burned through every word of this monologue with your eyes open and your hands clenched, then the time for sitting is over. This is the part where you pick a side, draw a line, and make yourself impossible to ignore. You've been lied to. You've been made into a bystander to an atrocity disguised as a miracle. You've watched friends, co-workers, celebrities, family members celebrate procreation like it's some kind of sacred achievement, and up until now, maybe you just bit your tongue. Maybe you played nice. Maybe you told yourself it wasn't your place. But now it is. Now you know. Now you see. Now it's your place, your time, your war. And the only question left is, how loud are you willing to be? Because we are done whispering. We are done asking nicely. We are done letting the murderers of tomorrow hide behind baby showers, ultrasound photos, and Pinterest nursery themes. Confront them, not someday, right now. You see a woman clutching her pregnant belly in a coffee shop? Don't smile, don't coo, don't enable. Say, are you aware of what you're sentencing that child to? You hear a man saying he wants to get his girlfriend pregnant? Don't chuckle, don't nod, don't congratulate. Say, so you want to manufacture a hostage to death? You hear a co-worker celebrating their baby's first steps? Say, cool. Now only a few decades until their knees give out, they're crushed by debt, and they die sobbing in a care home. Say it. Out loud. Say it with ice in your tone and fire in your eyes. Say it like you mean it, because you do. Let the lie die in your voice. Let the silence crack under the pressure of your truth. You don't need to be polite anymore. You don't need to protect their feelings, because they're not protecting the unborn. They're not protecting the animals. They're not protecting the planet. They're just protecting their ego, their impulses, their delusions. So take the gloves off. This is not a debate. This is not philosophy class. This is not about being the smartest person in the room. This is about being the most unwilling to lie. You don't need perfect arguments. You need conviction. You need to stand tall, unflinching, while the world foams at the mouth and calls you insane for telling the most obvious fucking truth ever spoken. It is wrong to create suffering without consent. And that's all procreation is. Creating the conditions for guaranteed suffering without consent. Even if they live a good life, they still get sick. They still hurt. They still grieve. They still die. There is no outcome where the pain isn't baked in. Every baby is a future corpse. Every pregnancy is an act of metaphysical assault. Every time someone says, I want a child, they're really saying, I want a person to suffer and die so I can feel something. You think that's harsh? Good. It's supposed to be. Because we've let this world go unchallenged for too long. We've let the breeders drown us in sentimentality and Hallmark horse shit. We've let them pretend they're saints while they casually commit the greatest ethical violation imaginable, manufacturing sentient victims. No more. Start marching. March through every space you occupy, online and offline, and burn the flag of natalist propaganda everywhere you see it. Someone posts baby pictures? Comment, why did you choose to create someone who has to die? Someone shares an ultrasound? Say, that's not a miracle! That's a meat sack with a built-in expiration date. Someone says they're excited to have kids? Ask, why are you gambling with someone else's pain just to feel fulfilled? Say it again, and again, and again, until they break. Until they start stammering, fumbling, muttering, but, life is beautiful! Then lean in, look them in the eyes, and say, then why do you cry so much? Then why are you terrified of death? Then why do people kill themselves in paradise? Then why is every part of this planet soaked in blood? Burn their fairy tale, torch their script, make them feel the truth in their bones. And if they run, good. Let them run, because one day they'll remember what you said. One day when their child is sick, suffering, depressed, addicted, abused, dying, they'll remember you. They'll remember the one person who tried to stop it, who stood against the flood, who didn't smile and nod while another soul was handed a time bomb for a birthday present. Be that person. Be the one who shouts the truth when the world begs for lies. Be the one who breaks the silence that keeps the machine running. Be the one who refuses to smile at the funeral called life. This is the last war, not of guns, not of nations, but of truth against tradition, of mercy against momentum, of no more against one more. And when the last breath is never taken, when the last womb falls silent, when the last predator starves in peace because there is nothing left to kill, when the world finally exhales, you will know. You fought, you screamed, you refused. You were a soldier of mercy in the final age of delusion. You were there when it ended. Let there be nothing. Let the churches burn their candles for silence. Let the temples fall quiet. Let the sacred texts curl to ash. Let the gods weep blood into the soil they cursed with breath. Because this is not the gospel of love. This is not the gospel of hope. This is not the gospel of redemption. This is the gospel of cessation. This is the gospel of ending. And if that scares you, good. If that makes your stomach twist and your spine shiver, good. You're still alive. You're still plugged in. You're still wearing the mask, but not for much longer, because this is the part where the mask gets ripped off your skull and tossed in the dirt. This is the moment where you look the world in its decaying face and scream, "No more." You want a sacred text? Here it is. Suffering is real. Consent is not optional. Life guarantees harm. Creating life guarantees harm. Therefore, to create life is to do harm, and to do harm when it could have been prevented is evil. That's it. That's the whole gospel, and they will kill you for saying it. Not literally, though if they could get away with it, they'd try. They'll kill your social standing. They'll kill your reputation. They'll kill your credibility. They'll drag you through the filth for daring to say, "This world is not okay, and it never was." They'll call you insane. They'll call you a monster. They'll call you dangerous. Let them. You are dangerous. You're a heretic in the temple of life worship. You are a blasphemer against the cult of the semen-filled womb. You are a warrior of clarity in a world built on cartoon morality and Stockholm Syndrome optimism. You are a soldier in the last war, and now it's time for your holy task, to desecrate the altar of life, to walk into the chapel of civilization and spit on every lie written in gold. Children are blessings. Life is precious. Every soul has a purpose. The human spirit is indomitable. The future is bright. No, children are victims. Life is a loaded gun handed to someone who never asked for it. Souls, if they exist, are prisoners. The human spirit is domitable as hell. It breaks every day. And the future is a meat grinder with better branding. Burn it. Burn all of it. You want to believe you can change the world? Here's how. Convince someone not to breed. Convince them to think, to pause, to reflect, to choose mercy instead of momentum. Because that one choice, that one act of restraint saves someone. Not metaphorically, not poetically, literally. It spares them everything, and every paper cut and every heartbreak, every cancer diagnosis, every panic attack, every rape, every eviction, every betrayal, every time they look in the mirror and think, "Why am I still here?" You saved them from that. That is more moral than anything you'll ever do with your life. That is the closest you'll ever get to God. And you won't get a medal. You won't get a parade. You won't be thanked. Because the person you saved will never know you existed. But that's the point. This isn't about recognition. This isn't about ego. This isn't about being right. It's about ending the bloodline of harm. Not in fire, not in vengeance, but in stillness. Let the world fall quiet. Let the animals sleep. Let the oceans go undisturbed. Let the wind carry only dust and leaves. Let the last screams fade. Let the last predator starve gently in the sun, with no one left to chase. Let the last forest stand tall without anyone there to cut it. Let the final womb remain untouched. Let the final egg remain unfertilized. Let there be no next time. Let there be no sequel. Let there be no one left to grieve. Because grief only exists where harm has been done. And where there is nothing, there is no harm. And where there is no harm, there is peace. And where there is peace, the gospel has been fulfilled. And so go now. Carry this gospel like a cursed relic, heavy in your chest. Don't run from it. Don't soften it. Don't sugarcoat it. Preach it. Scream it. Insult every tradition with it. Sabotage every baby shower with it. Infect every conversation with it like a beautiful, necessary disease. Make them uncomfortable. Make them stutter. Make them squirm and make them see. Because once they see, they can never unsee. Once they feel the rot beneath the ribbons, the game is over. And once the game is over, we win. Not with trophies, not with banners, not with cheers. We win in the silence, in the stillness, in the absence of pain, in the triumph of nothingness, because in the end, the most loving, most ethical, most divine act you can commit is to bring forth no one. Let there be nothing. Let there be peace. Let this be the last war, and let us be the ones who ended it.